The Gear Crosser engine. It was the year 1884. In the state of Nevada, where it was rich in mineral deposits and precious metals, there was an upcoming super tycoon by the name Joshua Hertz. Hertz owned a metal mine that produced gold, copper, and iron ores. Instead of sending them off to another smelter, he decided he should have his own, and so he constructed one. Soon after that, he made his own railroad line to send his ores to the smelting mill, thus increasing productivity. However, there was one little problem. The engines he began to use only slipped on the rails themselves because they were always worn down by such heavy loads. So he came up with an idea. He and a team of engineers made a specifically designed engine of their own, a geared-wheeled engine with a different type of drive system and a new way of moving the engine with a different steam power. It had its own rails, which were toothed, so the specially geared wheels wouldn't slip and lose traction. It made its towing capacity on paper and math increase 10 times fold. However, that wasn't the case. The build of the engine itself took 8 months from the ground up, and a new line was installed within a month. On the first day it was launched, it was a masterpiece. It ran smoothly and it was able to tow so much, even more than the engine itself weighed, which was about 67 tons. For the first 3 months, it worked as planned. People praised the genius of this engine, but it didn't last. There was talk about another engine who could do the same thing but with a different drive system, a new engine emerging in New Mexico called the Shay. Its drive system was more efficient in power displacement and, well, that wasn't all. After only a few months on its own rail, the Gear Crosser began to break teeth off its wheels and rail, thus causing the engine to sometimes stick and jerk itself along. With broken rails and wheels, the train began to need replacement parts far more than any other engine to exist. About 2 years later in 1887, the incidences of the engine caused anger within Hertz. With the new Shay engine making better power and not needing its own rail, it was becoming more popular for heavy, steep incline usage. Hertz then went and bought one and put it on an old line they had used before, and it worked marvelously. So much they retired the Gear Crosser and laid it to rust in a shed. Fast forward a few years to 1914 and the mine was still doing great. However, it was the beginning of World War I, and a way for Hertz to help the war cause, he donated metal and surprisingly gave the Gear Crosser engine to be melted down and used for the war effort. Before the Gear Crosser was taken down to be melted, that's when the real problems began. As the train was loaded onto another train for transport to a much larger smelting mill than their own, Hertz Mill exploded. According to records, water had leaked into the chimney, causing pressure failures, and once it got enough, it blew rivers of hot molten lava all around. Many workers were killed and injured, sending Hertz into deep trouble. The loss of the smelter and the cost of replacing valuable equipment was expensive, and even the metal Hertz sold to the government was going up in price, but he was finding less buyers for it. The war began to run Hertz down. After that, even more incidences began. Runaway cars crashing into buildings, cost of coal and wood going up, engines breaking down with no replacement parts in sight. Hertz workers were also drafted into the war, and soon the mill, mine, and company was shut down. Hertz was too old to fight at that stage, and with the little money he had left, he left the mine and went to the big city to open a speakeasy. The mine and mill slowly turned to weathered wood and rubble. The engines themselves rusted away and withered, abandoned to the ages of time. Sometimes in the desert, on cold, dark nights, if you listen closely to the sounds of it, far in the distance, you may hear the sounds of loud clanking and heavy chuffs in the wind. What you're hearing is not something you should fear, but you're hearing the past echo through the sounds of the mountains, reminding you of hard-working machines.